welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike German. We're here with my friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman. We also have our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, and working the dials is intern Erica. Gang, what's going on? How you doing? It's been about a week. How's everyone feeling? It was a hot one today.
It was good. I got air conditioning installed in my house today.
Hey, congrats. Wait, you didn't have that?
No, never had it. My old tenant and roommate, your brother, Greg Vierman, gave me shit about it for years. And so now that he's finally out of the house, then now's the time to do it. But it has
like central air or one of those ones that hangs out the window?
No, central air, like the real fancy deal. Yeah, it's
wow.
No,
there's a
he's
guy
actually paying a fan to fan him 24 hours a day.
But there's a lot of stuff going on around in the house.
I love my fans.
Ash is laughing. She liked that one. It is kind of funny though, because I have just refused to be of any help when it comes to any physical labor around the house. You know, if something needs to get done, I just call a guy. I'm not lifting a finger. So it's funny. Our neighbor Dave, who's kind of like a contractor and takes care of everything around the house, he's out there like in the 40-degree heat, like sweating and like putting patio stone in. I will like go outside to say hi and offer him a beer, and then I'll go back inside and like do like a 30-minute YouTube workout while he's outside, like, you know, sweating his ass off. But I have my parameters when it comes to how I like to participate in such things. So far so good though, and so it's all working.
Who mows your lawn?
We don't really have a lawn.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you do any yard work at all?
No. I refuse.
Shane, do you mow your lawn? Do you mow your lawn? Are you the lawn guy?
I do, yeah, for sure. It would look terrible if Alex, being 8 months pregnant, was out there mowing the lawn. Like, I wouldn't be able to face the neighbors. But the second that baby's out, she's on lawn duty. But yeah, I do kind of keep a competition with my neighbors. So the second that my grass is longer than theirs, I mow my lawn, and I use that as the barometer for when I should mow.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Oh, I'm the lawn guy. I take pride in it. It's when we first got this place a couple years ago. I'd never lived like in a house and had to do like a lawn before or whatever. And I was like, this is why people live in condos, so they don't have to deal with this. And I really fought the idea of being a guy that like did yard stuff or like trimmed the hedges and all that shit that you can imagine. And then once I started doing it, like now I'm that guy. I'm like this guy that sits on my back porch and I just look out at the lawn and I'm like, getting a little long. I think I need to get to that. Like, it's just like becomes this thing where it's like, I want to throw in a podcast and I want to do the lawn.
Do you think part of it has to do with the fact, though, that you don't have to deal with your kid or your wife because it's just you time? You're being helpful.
How dare you?
I'm mowing the lawn again. You mowed it 2 hours ago. Shut up.
Yeah, it is funny. I will say, like, just you would think, because of the current circumstances in the world, that people would have more time. I find I have absolutely no time. So when a pod comes out where it's like I'm actually want to like listen to something, I'll have to like say it's like Simmons or like say it's Zach Lowe talking about the NBA. I will find the 20-minute section that I want to listen to. Say he's going to talk about something interesting, and then I will listen to that in my 20-minute pocket where I'm like scarfing down some food and then back to the grind. Do you guys do that where you'll jump to a part of like the pod you're listening to that you want to?
No, I don't have a kid, Mike. I just do whatever the fuck I want. It's fine.
Oh, I know. You're living the dream. I heard. You just got central air. You don't do any lawn work. Shane, do you jump to a certain pod section?
I only listen to pods at night now, so my pod usage is way down. I am scared to listen to any headphones while I'm mowing the lawn. I've got a terrible fear that I'm going to run over a baby toy, ruin the lawnmower without noticing, or run over my foot or something.
Interesting. That's probably the responsible thing. I crank that pod while I'm doing the lawn.
Hey guys, so
Erica, what's your lawn like?
Oh,
sorry.
My lawn.
I just didn't care about what Erica was going to say. So go ahead, Erica.
I just don't want to be sexist here. We ignore Erica like man stuff here with the lawn.
Yeah, my parents actually got like a push lawnmower from my neighbors a few years ago. So when I'm home, I like to actually do it. It's a great workout.
Wow, those are hard. Yeah, I don't know if I can handle a push mower. Those are if your lawn is getting long, you're gonna get some good pipes.
Yeah, not frequently. I don't do it frequently, but occasionally. But my dad is obsessed with the lawn, so it's usually tip-top shape, I would say.
Maybe that's why I'm a lawn guy now, because I'm a dad. But Maxie, what were you gonna say to the gang? You seem like you're getting bored of this this mundane domestic talk. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah, let's keep it moving. Let's get to the topics.
Oh, that's it?
All right.
Oh, actually,
Max
no. I
doesn't
know what I was
suffer
going to say.
fools, eh?
What? I missed that.
Oh, I was just saying you don't suffer fools.
Oh, no. I don't know what that means.
You
What
don't
is
know that expression.
Don't worry.
Classic
Yeah,
Max.
it's not a roast or anything.
I know. Okay, good call.
Just keep going.
Thank you.
Did you
Call back.
see that hockey is coming back, and also MLS, which relates to Erica's job, might be coming back, and the NBA? Any thoughts on that before we get to topics? Are we excited to possibly play the Memphis Grizzlies if that's the thing? Mike, what do you think?
My feeling about all of this is genuinely like I would be so excited to watch NBA basketball, but a part of me is also like, if something tragic happens, it's gonna just suck so bad. Like the way that we feel about it. Like right now it feels good. It does feel good. And hopefully everything goes well. And it's like there might not be a vaccine or a good treatment for a half decade. It's like things will eventually go back. Sports will start happening with this sort of, I guess, what people find an acceptable level of risk. So to answer your question, if I could have NBA basketball back in my life while we're all sitting around here, you know what I mean? I would love that. It would be so cool to watch an NBA game and my favorite team in the playoffs. But there's a part of me that is like, it's going to be a disaster if something tragic happens. Like we're all going to feel like shit and we're going to feel silly and petty for like even forcing it through. I think that's my thought.
Well, you know, I was listening to Charles Barkley on Zach Lowe's podcast, and Barkley was like, I don't think we should play. And he was like adamant for those reasons. What if someone gets sick? Lowe was like, well, you know what? People are existing in this current state. You know, this virus takes different formations. Things change week to week. And it's like you look out, and this is not to condone the behavior, but it's like, you know, people are out and about. People are living their lives. So it's like the idea that people might get the virus in an NBA campus setting, like obviously would be upsetting. If someone died, it would be really upsetting. But you know, Karl Anthony Towns' mother passed away from the virus, and it's fucking brutal. And it's just like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that is the NBA and players playing together in a very contained space like any less dangerous than what's already happening, like in everyone's day-to-day life to begin with. So I'm just saying that it's just like there's risks. I think we've all accepted that there's just like going to be risks moving forward, and that like people playing together I don't think is a high one. At least that's the argument.
Yeah, it's pretty high though. You're passing a ball around, which is going to be covered in germs, and you're
but people are getting
very heavily
tested
around each
before
other.
they go, and it's supposed to be an enclosed place. And people are going to the grocery store. Like all these NBA players are out and about every single day. In this environment, they wouldn't have to go anywhere. Like, isn't that the argument that it could be?
Well, they're going to be in a hotel, so the model is going to have to be like so airtight. What about the people changing their bedding and the people, every single person in the hotel, everyone who touches the door? If they run it like a tight ship, I still think there's a possibility one player might get it, and then they're going to have to shut the whole season down anyway. Like, I have a feeling it's not going to last.
That's interesting. So your prediction is, so they'll go forward with it, and then it will get shut down before its completion.
Yeah, and maybe it's not an NBA player who has it, but it's going to be revealed that a hotel employee has it, that where the people are staying at, where the players are staying,
right.
And then they're just going to shut the whole thing down. That's what I think. It doesn't seem
No,
foolproof,
you're right.
this
It's
plan.
definitely not foolproof. But like the Loblaws around the corner in Toronto here, they had to be shut down for a couple of days because a couple of the employees had it, and how many thousands of people shop at that? I'm just saying that like this happens in everyday life altogether.
It's different though when it's an essential service like food or anything to sustain life. When it's a game, like literally a game, it is the stakes are a little bit different, and I think the ability to shut it down becomes a little bit easier when it's not necessary. Although we want it,
ball isn't literally life. That's just a good catchphrase.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Loblaws is life.
Loblaws is actually life. You need that food.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, Erica, what's the vibe like? You work in sports entertainment. What's the vibe? I mean, it's exciting because you guys are getting to go back to work, and the whole thing is we need to press forward in some sort of new reality until, like I said, there's a cure or vaccine or treatment or a vaccine. What's the vibe in sports entertainment in your industry?
Yeah, I think it's also pretty much same sentiment. It's cautious optimism. Like everyone is obviously so excited to finally get, live sports back, but yeah, I think there is maybe just a little bit of nervousness going into it all, just because, I mean, if things start back up, content people are going to be going as well. And like every team has to send someone from their like media team or at least like PR team or something to these things. Like these things, like they don't get on your TV without other people coming there too, right? You know what I mean? So there'll be a whole other like aspect of people getting there and stuff. So it's the circle of people that are there, of like normies that are going to end up being there, like even to like what Shane said, the hotel workers and stuff like that, I think it's going to be
and their family members.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a lot larger than people may think. And so I don't know. I think it's cautiously optimistic.
I'm just going to be so uncomfortable if the Raptors make it to the finals. I'll just be thinking, oh, someone's going to get the virus. Someone's going to fuck this up. And then they cancel the season when the Raptors are in the finals. You know, wouldn't that be like the perfect thing to happen to us?
You know what would be crazy is, let's say the Raptors make the finals, but there's some sort of weird circumstance, or they say they win it. It's like they're going to have, it's going to be such an asterisk.
Two asterisks.
That's it. Yeah. If anything, it's going to reinforce
the first
asterisk.
No matter what. Like,
that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't mean to be like flippant about it. Like, I don't want to make it like, oh, who cares? Kids were hanging out at Trinity Bellwoods. The life needs to go on. People need their relief. People like need to see other people. It's not that argument at all.
No, I don't think so. It didn't come across that way either. And I think that there is a large, I think that we do need to figure out what this looks like if it's going to be a few years of this. You know what I mean? And it's like, if everybody stays inside, like, I don't know if sports is something that we need or whatever, but stuff's going to need to happen that like progress will have to get made in certain areas, or else we're all like, money's just going to dry up. Like, the grocery stores won't stay open. People can't afford food. Things like that, I mean, are going to happen. So what are the first steps towards sort of like starting that giant wheel that is the economy back up so that, you know, their energy is generated? I don't know. I mean, it's a good question, but I think this is the start of those questions, and the answers might be uncomfortable because they are. I mean, this is a terrible situation. Yeah,
and by the way, though, like I'm obviously no public health official, but like Ontario and Quebec have it bad still. Like, we're not nearly out of it, and hosting a thing like this in Toronto would probably be a poor idea. BC, at least right now, has had like one new case. Like the other provinces in the middle of the country, like their trends move in different ways. It's not to say that there can't be a second wind, but there's all the other places in America that have been relatively untouched by it, right? Anyway, it's all to say that like the idea that we compare every situation to the worst case scenario, which is like New York City right now, I think needs to be just consider that like not everything is New York City, and there's different ways to deal with it, and the virus is in a different state than it was 3 months ago, and we also know a lot more about how the virus gets passed around, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, this is not me like being like stupidly optimistic or hopeful. It's just like also the reality that there are other realities out there that exist that aren't quite as dangerous as the worst case scenario that we constantly think about, which I'm happy that we constantly think about, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, in a lot of the places that don't have anything, too, they're that way because of the restrictions put in place.
Of course, and I'm happy we did all those restrictions. Yeah. This wasn't like why did we restrict in the first place? That's not what I was saying either. Yeah.
But I mean, when this gets lifted, you'll notice it starts to rise and it starts to creep into places that it never did before. And, you know, this whole thing just started with one person, right? So it can grow pretty rapidly. Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, I think we're all going to be in like very strict quarantine come winter. Like very, very strict.
Why do you say that?
Well, just because I think people are going to loosen up to an uncomfortably loose atmosphere this summer. And just from what I've already seen in like the one nice day we had, people kind of went loco. And then it's going to be proven like, oh, look, not that many people are dying, or it's not that bad, or the virus is a little less deadly than we thought. And then it's just going to grow out of hand and more out of hand to improve the economy. And then somebody's going to say, okay, everybody back in their homes once it gets to like a crazy problem again. Well, that's actually a natural sort of transition right into one of our topics, which was this sort of amazing day that we had recently. And in Toronto, there was this photo of a multitude of people in Trinity Bellwood's, young people enjoying their day. And this photo went viral, obviously, for a plethora of reasons. But people were very uncomfortable because everyone's been sort of locked up for
3 months and observing social distancing and sort of playing by the rules. But then this sort of mass group of people just all kind of went ham on the one nice day to sort of, it felt like a wave of scorn from the internet, whether that was Twitter or think pieces in the Star or any of the other sort of Toronto papers. What did you guys think when you saw the footage of all those young people sort of enjoying their afternoon in Trinity Bellwood after sort of, the rest of the world has been sort of locked up and abiding by the rules? Maxie, start with you.
Well, it reminded me a little bit of like the Queen's University students at homecoming, like that kind of vibe, where it's just like really throwing your privilege in everyone's face. It's like, and that's why it's like so so frustrating. Where it's like of course everybody's having a hard time with this. A lot of these people do live in little condo boxes in downtown Toronto. And to have the instinct to want to go outside, that's totally fine. I think that is something that we all need to do. Like, we need to get outside on a nice day. But when it becomes all about just like flaunting in your latest outfit, and not to sound like a boomer here, but like, and the party and being seen, and just like, that is when it becomes like really offensive. And I just kind of put in the context of like, if they weren't a bunch of white people and there was some other ethnicity, how much racism and vitriol would be thrown at these people? So I'm glad these people are being held accountable and being made to feel embarrassed and being made to feel shamed, because like they clearly took advantage of the situation and were disrespectful to all the healthcare workers out there. This is not the same thing at all, but I was just thinking about like that, the militia guys in Michigan who like stormed the state house with guns. You guys saw that?
Yeah.
Right? I was thinking, it was like, if those were a bunch of black guys that just went in there with guns, those black guys would be dead, right? So I always kind of put in the context of, it's like all these people are just so blatantly, flaunting their privilege, and that is obviously the most frustrating part about it.
Shaney boy, what'd you think of the scene?
Well, it made me think of prison a little bit. Like, how when people are...
I remember back when you did time, man. You can never forget a skit like that.
Well, when people are in prison, they get so like pent up and horny that they will literally, like, they'll have sex with their own gender, even if they're not homosexual at all. So I think that sex is such a powerful drug that these people, they just have to go out and peacock at any opportunity they can, because they're in their 20s and they just want to bang. And I think that's at the heart of all of this.
Not wrong.
Don't you? Yeah, like that's all it is. It's all these hot, trendy, hipster people just dying to show off. And that's all Trinity Bellwoods is.
Yeah, and it's like public drinking and day drinking. And I feel like this hasn't been around long enough for once people get a little intoxicated, like everyone just forgets about the 6 feet rule probably. You know what I mean? So after like a few beers.
Oh my God. It's so forbidden, and all that taboo, forbidden stuff just makes it hotter.
Like you're describing it like it's like a scene out of Caligula or something. But the thing about Bellwoods that was interesting to me is, and what Eric is kind of touching on is, like, people probably went there with the intention of like, okay, I'm gonna go there and we're gonna sit 6 feet apart in the park, and then they start drinking, and then they're drunk after 4 beers, and like it probably felt so good to be drunk and outside. And the thing about alcohol is it strips away the sort of this like your ability to actually care or be tense. So imagine how freeing it must have been, although stupid and selfish and all of those things, but when you're intoxicated, you don't know, just to be like, oh my God, it feels like it used to feel like 3 months ago, and then before you know it, there's just everybody's fucking a foot apart, laughing their asses off.
You lock eyes with some little hottie and you're like, oh, we can't, we shouldn't. Before you know it, you're making out.
Yeah, lovers in a dangerous time, right?
Like if you guys were, okay, let's say you guys showed up, okay? Because to be honest, I'm so happy I was not in Toronto this past weekend, because I could have very well been one of these people.
That was going to be my question. Is if you would.
I fit the demographic perfectly, and I just feel like if I was cooped up in my little house over there, like I would have just needed to go out. And so I feel like, I totally would have showed up maybe early, got my little place. I would have been with my roommates, but we would have been 6 feet apart from everyone else. But once the TV cameras showed up and CTV News and CBC and every other fucking publication in Toronto showed up, I would probably be like, oh, this is probably bad and I don't want to be documented and I don't want to end up in a textbook one day. Let's go home now. Like, this is bad. And the mayor showed up.
Yeah, that girl with the hat. Oh my God.
She's
Like, the
everywhere.
girl
Her
with the hat
face is
and
everywhere. The
I
one girl,
wonder
like,
what she's going
throwing
through
the
right now.
ball. Like, I'm like, oh, you poor girl. Like, you are probably so embarrassed right now. But, yeah. It's just like, once the TV crews show up, leave.
But you think binge drinking Erica would have had the wherewithal to leave the scene?
No.
I think you would have been like, "Hey, cute cameraman."
She does an interview, and let me tell you another thing about being locked up.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm just, I mean, I totally understand everyone's intention in going there and just like, oh, we'll stay 6 feet apart from everyone, but you know, it got real bad real quick, and like when things get real bad real quick, you gotta leave in this age of social distancing. Just, you need to leave, turn around and go home if it was that packed, you know?
Do you think 20-year-old Max would have gone?
Oh, no, because I think I have more respect for authority figures. Like, I'm generally like, okay, I should do the right thing. I don't usually, sticking my middle finger at the man. I'm always like, the man's trying to do his best kind of thing. That's usually my position.
But you do like to peacock.
I do like to peacock, but not under these circumstances. But I will say the next day, I think the
He's
park,
a circumstantial peacock.
yeah. I know when it's appropriate and when it's not. The next day, the park was pretty empty, or at least was appropriate in terms of the volume of people there. So I do think there was like a certain amount of like, we need to get this out of our system happening, you know, like with that day, we're like, we just like everybody, we're going to go loco. Like, there is going to be a couple purge nights and days in the city of Toronto. I'm not excusing it, but it is something that we're probably going to see. That is just reality. Unless they figure out a way to have people out and about socializing, drinking at a normal clip, so they don't have to have these purge days. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be some changes in the bylaws when it comes to like public drinking and just like park space, and also pedestrian only roads where you don't have to deal with cars, because I think all that would help with people's like sexual tension, as you say, Shane.
Yeah. Well, in a weird way, this is good too, because the release of COVID is becoming manageable, because there's such like a divide. People with families and people over 30 are generally following the rules, and then people who are younger tend to be breaking the rules. That kind of keeps it controllable, right? The spread.
Do you guys think that the government's doing a good job right now? I haven't been paying too close attention, to be honest, but like Doug Ford and Trudeau and John Tory, do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I got kind of bored with the everyday speeches. Like, after 2 weeks, I'm like, I get it. I'm like,
it's true. Well, just like anything, you become fatigued. Like, at some point, like, I stopped paying really close attention. You read the news, you keep up to date. Like, you know, you see the stuff that's unavoidable on Twitter, like Trump saying that he, saying crazy things, or taking what was that drug called, like the hydroxychloride or whatever. You see those things, but as far as like Doug Ford giving a presser every day, or like even the prime minister speeches, it's like I haven't been watching that stuff in a while. Like Shane said, it's like, okay, I know the rules, I know how to protect myself and my family. It's like I'm gonna kind of stick with that until there's like a breaking news that it's like, we found an amazing treatment where literally you're only sick for a couple days and you don't die. And it's like, dope, let's get back to it, But until then, it's just kind of like, madness out there. Like, because it's like, yeah, people, that person. Have you guys seen these videos? I did see these where people refuse to wear a mask going into a store. Like, it becomes like sort of like this act of defiance,
Yeah,
Like, I think we talked about this in another pod, like, don't let the terrorists win or whatever. So it's like you have all these people, and it's kind of being divided along party lines, where it's like, I'm not no sheep. You can't make me wear a mask in America. This is a free country. So there's all these taped interactions of the,
yet they are the sheep themselves following just a different herd or whatever.
Exactly. That's the irony. And just the guy in the Costco or whatever, and he's like, and he's taping the dude, the Costco employee who's got the mask, and he's like, sir, you need to wear a mask. And he's like, I'm not putting on my mask, so whatever. And the guy goes, and I'm taping this for my Twitter for my 3,000 followers. And the employee at Costco is like, well, hello to your 3,000 followers, but you still need to put on a mask. And then he turns his camera around to himself and he goes, no, because I'm not a fucking sheep. And then because the guy was standing in line, the employee takes his whole cart jam-packed full of shit that he clearly spent an hour and a half shopping for. And he goes, well, sir, you have to leave. And then, have you guys seen this clip?
No,
and
I
he
have
takes
to
the
now,
guy's
though.
stuff. And the guy, as the card's being taken, turns to his wife or whatever. He's like, here, take my card and you just buy it. He's like, no, sir, you have to go. That's it. You go. And then the guy's like, it is so. And then that guy got blown up on the internet and all that stuff.
That's
But
awesome.
it was just embodied him thinking that he had the power, and then the power was stripped from him right away. And then there's been sort of way worse videos of people like getting violent because they're being asked to put on a mask. It's just like, it's so insane out there, and those things can be sort of very draining, where it's just like, yeah, you just got to kind of put your head down and try and stay safe yourself.
I've had people try to fuck with me a couple times.
How so?
I was walking with Lucy and Alex, and a guy rode by on his bike and like brushed me on his bike. And I'm with like a 2-year-old walking, but he's trying to prove that he's that type who doesn't give a shit about distancing, and he wants to say something to me. So he rides by me, brushes my arm, and he just goes by. But he looks to see if I look at him and what I'm going to do. So I just go and kind of stare him down. And then Lou keeps walking with Alex, and I just cross my arms and I watch to see what he's going to do. And I make sure I could take him in a fight too. So I'm like, if this gets terrible, I can handle this. And then he pulls out his camera and starts filming himself. And he's like one of these, like, I'm a sovereign citizen, YouTube, I have rights person.
How old was he?
He was like 50 something. I think I could take him. But but he's like, oh, this guy's giving me a bit of a stare down. Looks like he wants to have a bit of a conversation. I'm like, here we go. And then he rides by me. And I'm like, okay, it's going to go down. And he's going to turn the camera on me if I talk to him. But then I just ended up not saying anything and just gave him the like evil look. And that was it. But this happened to me again where a guy wanted to like bump into me while walking to prove that he doesn't give a shit about distancing. But it's
And
like
afterward, did you have like the fantasy of like what
yes.
you would have said?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes.
So what would you have said?
He comes up and he's like, do we have a problem? And I'm like, yeah, you just fucking almost ran over my 2-year-old daughter. And he's like, what? I can't ride my bike there? I'm like, I don't think you can. And he's like, I know my rights. It's actually part of this bylaw. I can ride my bike here. And then I'm like, I don't give a shit. You should never ride that close to a 2-year-old. You shouldn't be riding that close to people. It's not about COVID. I'm like, I don't care about it. I'll punch you in the face right now and prove I don't care about COVID. And then I punch him in the face. He lands like hard, but not so hard where he's like knocked out. He's just on the grass. And then my wife just like is impressed, and then we go home and make love. That's the fantasy.
So you would have no problem fighting a stranger during COVID time?
As long as I knew he was going to be okay, and I'd wash my hands right afterwards. Because I think as long as you wash for 20 seconds, you're okay. I wouldn't, the knuckles I used, I wouldn't put the knuckles that I used anywhere near my mouth or my eyes.
No.
Or your wife?
No.
For that.
No. Yeah, I'd wait till I wash my hands and then take care of her.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely had that fantasy.
Yeah, I've had that fantasy too, because Ash and I walked by the protesters at Queen's Park last week, and everyone, it's like every dumb fucking sign that you could think of. It's like vaccinations, fuck off. It's like this is slavery. Like, it's like every sort of person who's a little unwell, and it's just like the thing which I'd like to say. It's like, do you know Doug Ford? Do you know the guy who's the premier of whose whole thing is like business first? I only give a shit about business. Do you think that guy is enjoying this? No. All he wants to do is support private businesses. And that guy is saying, stay the fuck home and don't touch anybody. And I don't even like that guy, but he's right. So like,
he's still thinking about business, though. That's the funny thing. He's just somehow smart enough to know we'll get back to business sooner in the long run if we eradicate this sooner.
Well, this is it.
And
So any of these like
do it.
sovereign people that are like the government trying. It's like, do you think I like it? Like, do you think I like shaming you because you are like, don't have a mask on? Like, no. Like, everyone we all agree on this, guys. Like, I can't even understand why there's like divisions here. We all agree it fucking sucks. What it sounds like from people that have PhDs, the best way to get through this as quick as possible is to stay the fucking side and not go near each other. So let's fucking do that. Like, not some dumb fucking article you read on the internet.
Calm
Do you
down,
guys
Max.
think and I absolutely agree with you, Maxi. Do you guys think back to the people in Bellwoods and like that sort of grouping? If you're sort of in your 20s and living in a big city downtown Toronto, do you think so those people were all in parks and around each other, and we've seen similar scenes all around North America. Do you think those people during this time have been like hooking up like, do you think that people are secretly hooking up with one another? Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God. In your 20s, like I was saying before, the sex is just so powerful, that draw.
So for them, the stretch, like for all of us, we're like staying in, or it's like people are keeping very tight bubbles and all of this stuff. But it's like if these people since like 2 weeks in have been like, you know what? It's like I feel fine, you feel fine, and then they're secretly like meeting up and hooking up or whatever. It's like maybe it's not that crazy of a leap to be like, yeah, let's go hang out and have a beer in Bellwoods with other people who we think are safe or whatever that stretch is.
I totally get why
but at least
they're doing
there's
it.
but like the in secret thing though, it's like at least you're not like flaunting it. Like at least you're not out there in public. Like there is a certain amount of shame by hooking up in secret. But the thing with the Bellwoods, which was the most offensive, was that it was just like out.
But
for everybody
Bellwoods
to
would have
see.
been fine on Saturday if there wasn't 10,000 people. If 50 people showed up and chilled in Bellwoods, flaunting it, like it would have been totally fine. You know what I mean? It just got out of control so quick, and the last probably like 9,000 people who showed up should have just turned around and went home. But they didn't, because they thought they could manage the 6 foot thing while they were there. Like, I don't think anyone went there with the intention, like, today we're breaking social distancing laws, and I don't give a fuck. At least I don't think the majority of people that went there, that was their mentality, you know?
But everyone was like sitting on a blanket. All the people on the blanket were very close
But
to
they
each
could have
other.
been
like on every
roommates.
blanket.
I don't know.
I don't know. I doubt it.
Yes.
Erica, did you know people in Trinity Bellwoods this weekend?
I didn't see it on any of my friends' social media. I saw friends at parks in Toronto, but none of them were as bad as Trinity Bellwood.
With naming names, who are your friends hooking up?
You asked this last
I
week.
don't.
Shane, I think.
So I'll be honest with you. I don't have any confirmed names. I think the ones who are doing it's rather quiet. But my friend told me about 3 weeks ago.
She can beep it.
She told me 3 weeks ago that she was going to have a guy over who also lived by himself. She lived by himself. We've only been going to the grocery store, this, that, the next. But I think these single people did
like a
try
rom-com.
for probably the first little bit, and now it's like it got to a point where they were like, "Fuck it! Like I'm living by myself. You're living by myself. I'm only going to the grocery store. Come to my house." Which I'm not saying is right or wrong. Do your thing, girl. But I probably won't be hanging out with for a period of time.
Crazy times, guys. Should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah.
All right. The next thing we are talking about today is another podcast, actually. Called Call Her Daddy. It's kind of interesting. This is like one of the most popular podcasts in
Never
the
heard of
world.
that.
But have you actually never heard of this pod?
Never.
Shaney?
Never.
Okay, so you know what's funny about this is, so two things. I had never heard of this podcast either until they got in this big dispute with Barstool, which is what we're going to talk about shortly. But last week, I think this thing went down. I saw some stuff on Twitter and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I kind of read the backstory before Scooter Braun got involved. We'll get to that in a second. But what was interesting about Call Her Daddy, that podcast, is it reminded me so much of Guys We Fucked, who I moderated that thing for them at Just for Laughs. Do you remember those two?
Yeah, of course.
Shane,
we follow them on Twitter.
Yeah, so I was just like, this just seems like that, but I guess more successful or popular because to Max's point, this and the Joe Rogan podcast are like, they're the two most popular podcasts in the world. That's Max's fact, not mine. I didn't fact check it, so I'm not sure if it is true or not. But either way, Call Her Daddy is this massively popular podcast started by two friends, these two girls, whatever, besties, and they signed a deal with Barstool Sports. And the head of Barstool is this guy named Dave Portnoy, who's become very, very sort of like famous, but also polarizing. People feel like Barstool is, at times misogynistic. It can be whatever. We could get into all that, but we won't. It has a huge following. People do love Barstool. So anyways, these two girls have this podcast. They sign this deal with Barstool. It becomes wildly successful. They want to renegotiate their deal before their contract is up because of how much more successful it's become. I guess Dave, the head of Barstool, is like, yeah, we can start talking about that. It seems fair, et cetera, et cetera. But then he finds out one of the girls' boyfriends is like some suit that he's like an agent or some sort of representation. I'm not sure what the boyfriend does. But he finds out that guy's been shopping the podcast to other outlets, even though they have a contract with Barstool. So even if like somebody else wanted to buy this podcast, it's not like they could get rid of the Barstool contract anytime soon. So I guess this pisses off the head of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, and he basically is like, that's fucked up. I don't want anything to do with that girl or her boyfriend anymore. So then that girl and the other girl get in a huge fight, I guess, about like who does more work on the podcast, if one's committed, the other one's boyfriend's like, you guys aren't getting paid what you should get. So it all becomes this huge mess. All of a sudden, Scooter Braun gets involved because I guess the boyfriend, realized he screwed up this deal for his girlfriend because now she's been cut out of the pod and basically they're going to move on with the other girl. And then so Scooter Braun calls somebody at Barstool that is not the head of Barstool, and then Dave Portnoy or whatever goes on and basically says, fuck the suit, fuck the girlfriend, and fuck Scooter Braun. We don't care about any of that stuff. Whole thing blows up. He's like, dude, you screwed up your girlfriend's life and her career right now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a wild sort of story for many reasons, but I guess we're going to talk about one, I guess this story and our take on it, but then two, what makes their podcast so popular, whether it's like Rogan, who just sold his podcast to Spotify for $100 million, which is insane. That's
Seems
like nonsense
low,
to
actually.
people money. Does it?
Totally. Oh my God. In 2003, I think Howard Stern sold it to Sirius for $500 million, which would basically would be over $1 billion now. And Joe Rogan has more listeners than all the media in North America combined. It's nuts. They got away with like a steal, I think. And so
That's
many,
interesting.
Everybody's going to go over from Apple to Spotify now. I'm not saying they'll stop using Apple Podcast app, but I'm going to have to go to Spotify, and then I'll listen to Rogan and whatever else they have to offer there. But it's going to be huge for them and ultimately considered a ripoff.
Well, even The Ringer, right? Simmons went over there with everybody. So it's like a bunch of us listen to those NBA Ringer podcasts. It's like weird. They're all now be Spotify podcasts. And I listen to everything primarily through Apple, even though we are on both Apple and Spotify. I have started listening to Spotify. So it works, I mean, they're going to get subscribers
it's a
based
win-win.
on who they pay to have. Yeah. So anyway, what did you guys think of this deal? Like, do you think that like these girls, do you think there's just like a common showbiz tale where it's like, the one person has this partner and then like, I'm trying to think of where it went wrong. You know what I mean? Is it just the boyfriend basically saying you're not getting paid what you're worth? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Or is it like
It's the boyfriend.
Well,
he overstepped his bounds, I think.
Did you see his Dave Portnoy, by the way, like he has like a legion of fans. He's like the Mr. Barstool. And it's funny, it makes me think about like how there's certain things like in our friend group that like feel like the biggest deal in the world, but like to most people, it's like I've never even heard of that thing. Mm-hmm. Where, and I think that the inverse of that probably is Barstool Sports, because like we consume so much sports media and pop culture. Does Barstool Sports really ever get brought up in the Champagne Boys group? Like no, it doesn't really.
No.
But this podcast, Call Me Daddy, I'm looking on. This is like the latest update. The website is called podcastinsights.com, top 100. Joe Rogan's number 1, and Call Her Daddy is number 2. Isn't that insane? Obviously, we all know Joe Rogan, but the Call Her Daddy podcast is so.
I want to know how much they were getting paid and what the offer was they were trying to get.
The salary was $500,000 a year for each, I think. And I think they had other rights, and they had but basically, Portnoy is like a legend in his own right. He's like, I was talking to our buddy Brent, and he was saying how people have been sending him things like in the mail throughout COVID, and every day he does like an unboxing, and he just rates the thing that has been sent. But he has this like Boston gruff guy thing to about it, and I was just thinking about like, what is it about Boston that like creates these like personalities that are like so wicked smart, like funny guys, but also really savvy in like Portnoy's from Boston, Bill Simmons is from Boston, Bill Burr I think is from Boston, Louis C.K. is from Boston, Adam Sandler's New Hampshire, Russillo's from Boston, but it's just like there's such a quality to like their like hot takes that kind of combines like an everyman thing as well as it just being like super smart that is like so appealing in the podcast world. And I think one of the reasons I was talking to my friend Matt Brookman about it is the reason why someone like Portnoy does well is that he isn't afraid to be controversial in a comedy kind of way, where there's a lot of people that like are afraid to say things because I don't want to be shamed, or I don't want to be written about in the New York Times, or what's Vox magazine going to be say about me. Where Portnoy goes, I don't give a fuck. I don't like this. I'm unapologetic about who I am, and this is what I think is funny. And if you think I'm saying something that's a little offside, well, that's your problem. I don't get. And by the way, I'm not saying that I condone this or agree with it, but I just find it interesting that attitude is the most popular thing. It truly, like, it does appeal to the most amount of people. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do find it really interesting that that sort of segment of the culture is largely hated by, like, Ivy League liberal, like, progressive blah blah blah. Anyway, I'm painting with broad strokes. But I just thought that was an interesting lens to view this through.
Well, it's considered authentic, right? And people are so obsessed with authenticity in, like, podcasts.
Have you consumed any Barstool or anything, Shane, or has it been on the radar at all?
The closest I've gotten to it is the segment the one guy does where he eats all the pizza.
That's him.
So he'll
That's Portnoy or whoever.
Is that Portnoy?
Yeah.
Portnoy. Yeah. That is Portnoy. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, that guy's funny. I like Barstool. Hey man, call me whatever you want. But he's funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's also been doing lately, and I have watched a couple of these clips just because they become so popular. He kind of did a COVID rant that where basically he said the whole goal of quarantining was to flatten the curve. It wasn't to quarantine forever. So he's like, what are we doing right now? Like, you guys told us to do this so that we could, like, give hospitals a chance to sort of prepare themselves. But we weren't doing this so that we would stay locked up for the next 3 years. He's like, what are you talking? Anyway, the point, his rant went so viral that everybody sort of started talking about the way that he was. See, this is an example of how polarizing he is. So he puts that rant out. Haralabob Vulgaris, who's like a famous sports gambler, on Twitter tweets Dave Portnoy's thing, and he says, Dave nailed this. And then a bunch of people in his comments basically say, hey, that guy's toxic. And then he's like, listen, he's like, I don't know anything about him. He's like, but I'm saying that this clip is, he nailed it or whatever. But it's like, it's just so interesting who's all. But he is
kind of right, isn't he? And it's good that it's polarizing, because then if everyone agreed with him, we'd be fucked. And if everyone didn't, we'd be fucked. So if it keeps going like this, we're just a little bit out, I think we'll be okay. The fear is if everyone has the same mindset all at the same time.
Just to wrap up this caller daddy, do we think these women will be in a friendship again, and will they be doing their podcast within the next month? Do you think it gets solved?
Well, just knowing nothing about them, I say yes. I just like throwing a guess out there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the one is sort of like back in, and the other, and Portnoy obviously is just as popular, if not more popular, as a personality than these women themselves. I don't know, I also just think it's like just interesting. It always just, I like, not to say that like I agree with like, everything that Barstool puts out, or this, I've never listened to the podcast, but it's just like, I think it's just a good reminder that like people are in their own bubbles, and the people that control a lot of the media or the voices that we often follow on Twitter, like, are in their own bubble and come from a certain worldview, and their like lack of like, understanding of like what's happening outside or interest in it is something that's like kind of revealing. That like the fact that I didn't know that this podcast is the second highest, most rated podcast in the world is actually very interesting to me. And it's just, if we want to learn to like get along with people or understand people better, it's like, it's good to like not just dismiss people. And I think that's one of the geniuses about Rogan. Like Rogan, actually, why I really respect him is that he's just like, occupies so much space, and he's like unapologetic about it. But he will, as you say, like talk to literally anybody and everybody, and he does it with generally like a good sense of decency and curiosity, and
he's a centrist. And I think people are scared of people on one side of the spectrum or the other, because
and they won't even talk to people on the other side of the spectrum.
No, which makes, it's ridiculous. It's annoying.
And you'd think that like more people, like more of these like media types, would take a lesson from Rogan and go, you know what? He does this thing where he's actually unafraid to have an honest conversation with anybody and everybody, and I think that's pretty cool.
And you have to admit, when someone you hate does something that's good, you have to gain credibility by saying, oh, that person, although I hate them, they did something good right there, and I'm going to talk about that. Because
Yeah, like
I
Doug
want to see
Ford,
that person
blatantly,
who I
yeah.
hate do more good things. So when CNN is, no matter what, is just putting down Trump constantly, I don't think it's doing them any favors for their goal.
Yeah.
But Rogan will actually have these people on, and then I feel like I'm getting the real deal. Like it actually
Yeah, and
feels
you just get to
authentic.
understand people. Like I think that's one of the biggest problems we have in our society right now is that we just like don't understand people that are different.
But he's
from
not
us.
trying to convince me of anything either. Whereas
No, he's not. He's
CNN
he's
is
genuinely
Fox.
curious about these people. That's
Yeah.
what makes him great. All right, let's get the last one here, Mikey.
All right. Our next topic is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Big story today. She has had this book sitting in her attic for like a decade that she wrote. It's her first children's book since the Harry Potter series. It's called Ichabod, something like that. But basically, she wrote this thing like a decade ago. It's been sitting in a box. I guess she kind of read it to her kids. It was only for her kids. But I guess she went back and found some of the manuscript and kind of started digging. It's like, oh, she kind of dug it. And then decided to sort of finish this book, or I guess polish it up, complete it. And instead of sort of publishing it and selling it, which, you know, a children's book by J.K. Rowling would be the #1 seller in the world within 2 seconds, she decided to release a couple chapters every day or every week, I'm not sure, for all the kids that are like stuck in quarantine right now. Everybody's sort of at home, and it's something that parents can read to their kids, and she's giving it away for free and allowing people to, she's encouraging them to like do animations, and they might get into the actual published version of the book that will come out down the road. But I don't know. I liked this story for a couple reasons. One, I just think it's really cool to have something that is so wildly valuable. You know what I mean? It'd be like especially someone that doesn't like. It's like someone that had the biggest hit in the world, like a famous director or like I don't know, someone who's considered an amazing songwriter, not putting out something in their genre or even directing a film for years and years and years, and then being like, oh, actually, you know what? I just got this film that I directed that's been sitting in a vault, and I'm going to release it. But not only am I not going to sell it, it's like I'm going to give it to you guys all for free. I just think that's really cool.
But
move
if the
on her
movie's
part.
shit, though, maybe she's like, oh my God, this is terrible. Okay,
I can't sell
if
this,
I
yeah.
sell it, it's going to tarnish my name. But if I release it for free, it'll give me enough publicity where my next thing will just be purchased like gangbusters. It's a good play.
It is a good play. It is a good play.
I
There's
still
two
think
adult
she's
books.
trying to make money by this, in a way.
She will.
What's that?
They'll publish it eventually. But yeah, I like that angle. I just think it's smart and generous, regardless if she is planning to make more money down the road with it. I still think it's good for her fans. They're going to get a free book, which is cool, especially for all these kids sitting around. Time will tell if it is a shitty book, though. And then the second thing that got me thinking about was, you know, we're all creative people. We've all done work in the past, whether it's like an old skit or an old movie or a song we wrote or something like that. Is there any old work that you guys have dusted off or that you would dust off that you'd be willing to sort of show the world or post on one of your social channels or something like that? So let's go around the grid. Erica, have you done anything in the past that you would ever want to share?
So shit, like something that's already completed that we would put out, or something we'd pick back up and finish.
It could be both. It could be either or.
I don't know. Well, when I was in school, I did this like mini doc on the Bruce MacArthur case, and I was like super proud of it at the time. It's very dated now, but I wish I plugged it a little bit more in my life, because for where I was at in my life and for how it came together, it's a good piece of journalism. But that's probably the only thing I would revisit creatively from the past. Yeah.
Throw it on YouTube. Share a link. Let's do it.
YouTube. I don't plug it. But maybe I'll plug it.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it on YouTube. Shaney boy, anything that you would go back and revisit? That
I
done
think
a script you've written.
This is kind of out there already in the public, but it doesn't have hardly any views. It's the 7 years ago, Mikey. You and I did this Wiz Khalifa Streeters. And every time I watch it, I'm never impressed with anything I do, by the way. Every time I see something, I'm like, I thought this was good at one time. I am terrible. But this is the one thing where it feels like I'm not watching myself. And I'm like, this is very well done and very hilarious. So Wiz Khalifa, Shane Cunningham Streeters, I guess would be keywords. But I think that deserves some more love. And Mikey produced it for me. So
it was great. You were amazing that day. We went out and we just shot you fucking with all of those Wiz Khalifa fans outside of the Molson Amphitheater, now Bud Stage. You were awesome. That's a great piece. People should definitely go look that up. It's really good.
Mike, what do you got?
Me, I would. People, I don't know, listeners might know this, might not, if they're regular listeners. I was in a band called San Seb, and we have like our whole album. I don't think is on Apple Music. Some of it is. I don't know. Our music's all over the place. I don't know. I don't think we're on Spotify. We're not really. Even though we were on Universal and had a record deal, our music's not really out, which is pretty much fine with me. But the band before that, The Racket, that I was in with my brother and Ted. Our friend Dan Hamilton, his brother had a bunch of like old demos that we did. And
well, I want to cut you off because Greg, I'm in a text combo with Greg and Dan. And earlier this week, Greg sent me a text and he was like, Max, you ever hear this song Mike wrote in the heart of the first Danica breakup? This is straight yogurt and water Mike. And then he sent, it's called the Danny Demo. Do you know this one? Are we familiar?
It is Danaland shit.
Yeah, it's a good song.
And it's a great song. And I was like, I need more of this. I'm going to play it for you guys right now. 1 second, here we go.
Erica, we'll just give you the song if you want to play it at the end. Are you going to just play it on your mic?
I want to hear it now, though.
Can you hear it?
Oh, my God.
Can you hear it, Mike? Shane?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
It starts out with late nights on the phone. I knew I could not leave you alone. Mission mail could always make my day. Danaland was a place I needed to stay.
Great song. I was like, why wasn't there more of this?
All right. We're going to listen to the whole thing.
We should just fade the episode out like this. So, all right, say goodbye, everybody. And then for the next 2 minutes, it'll just be the song.
But can we play the audio from the Wiz Khalifa Streeters also?
Yeah, we'll do that at the end, too. All right, see you later, guys.
I'm still living in all my thoughts. Danny, my heart can always be your home. We're miles apart. But don't you ever feel alone. I'm here for you. No matter how much this life may change, my love is true, and I'll always feel the same. Train rides with you every single day. Right now I wish I had stayed awake. Every night with the yellow baby in our bed. There's nothing better than your homemade banana bread. There's a million things I would say and do, but when you think of me, I think of me and you. A hippopotamus, a Vegas Eastern us. I could not forget all the things we did. A wedding in the West, all the songs I wrote. It's you, it will always be you. No matter where I go, whatever I might see, when I think of you, I think of you and me.